one more reminder, use the raise hand function. We'll get to as many folks with questions as possible. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time to join us this afternoon. We're going to be joined by Director of Athletics, Whit. I will open it up for Whit to make some opening remarks, and then use the raised hand function, and I will get to as many of your questions as possible. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Whit.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, y'all, for being here. Thank you to the media for covering us this season, to the players that played so hard, to our coaches. Thanks to our alumni and fans. It's not always easy being a fan. We empathize with you. We will be okay, and we will be great again. Additionally, before I get going, I'd like to recognize our medical staff and all who worked so hard this football season and fall season. Lots of young people, or lots of people around our young people and safety, and really, really proud of them. And then additionally, I also want to pause for a second and recognize Bill Dyer, a guy that many of you in media know, a COSIDA legend, and he deserves to be celebrated. So thank you for a job well done, Bill, and you were a pro. And unfortunately, we had to eliminate some positions. There may be some other folks when they announce that we will want to celebrate as well. But I've known Bill for a long time and wanted to at least say that. Also want to offer a word of encouragement to our fans and everyone out there, our local community who've been impacted by the virus, personally, financially. We realize there's a lot of challenges when we can't bring games and fans into Blacksburg, and we appreciate those that continue to support us. And we wish you well for brighter days ahead. And what a celebration it will be when we're back together in Lane and Castle and more. You will hear from Justin tomorrow and a lot about our newest signee class. It'll be a good opportunity for Justin to speak about that, and then also directly to Hokie Nation tomorrow. And I believe you will hear from our coordinators as well. So just me today. A rule that I learned, I don't know that it's hard and fast, but it served me pretty well when things are difficult, is with the media and public, you either tell them everything or nothing. It seems like sometimes when you get in between is when it gets a bit messy. So I've been pretty quiet, and this is as much for the media as our fans, and hope to tell you everything. And explain the why behind it. I think the days of, hey, I'm the athletic director, this is what we decided, and put out a press release, that may be great. We'll find out after this. But I feel like they deserve more than that, and the why behind it. So I will have a bit more of an opening statement than most. I'll try not to go too long. I know some of you don't love transcripting all my remarks, but we'll get through it, and then certainly have all the time in the world for your questions. So what I plan to cover in the opening remarks, just a little bit about the last few weeks. That's one, why we felt Justin should and will continue as our head football coach, and what will be focuses of improvement. That's two. And then what we will ask the Hokie Nation to do moving forward for the next 9 or 10 months before we play football again. So first things first, just to give people a little look behind the scenes. Certainly during a football season, you're evaluating, watching, meeting with the coach regularly. Justin and I did that through the season. Towards the later third of the season, I would talk with Dr. Sands and our Board of Visitor Chair, keep them in the loop, update them. I really like working with those guys and ladies, and I love that we have alignment at Virginia Tech. It doesn't mean that we always agree, although we certainly do in this case. But, you see a lot of schools splinter, and I can't thank Dr. Sands and the board enough for, hey, let's stick together and let's do what's right and let's go. So that's been going on. During the evaluation process of a football coach or a season, I turn it like a Rubik's Cube over and over and over. I work hard to strip away my ego and emotion and be comfortable with the fact that I'm paid to do this, that no one is closer to it globally than me and the overall pulse, and I own and accept that responsibility 100%. Also, the last few weeks, we've been able to evaluate the spirit and morale of the team. I'm really proud of them. It tells you a lot how they finished on Saturday night. I spoke with some fans and donors. It doesn't take too long to get opinions. I love the passion of our fans, but there's some that I wanted to give the time to. You can't listen to too much. You also can't block out too much. And even in your harshest critics, sometimes there's an ounce of truth. So you try to listen and then do the best you can. I also talked to some of our former players, missed a few. I feel bad about that, but certainly talked to Bruce Smith, Michael Vick, and some others. Yesterday, spent 4 hours yesterday morning with Justin, saw and heard what I wanted to see, and it energized me. And again, Justin and I had been meeting weekly throughout the season and had planned to meet first thing on Monday morning yesterday, win or lose versus UVA. So we did that. With Justin, we covered recruiting extensively, the depth chart, strength and conditioning, coaching, community outreach, fan donor engagement, his media appearances, former player involvement, that this is a results-driven business, what the identity to our team is and needs to be, where we need help and support. Is he committed? Does he want to be here and do it right here? And his answers were honest and sincere and genuine, and again, certainly energized me. Any past misunderstandings that Justin and I may have had are greatly, greatly exaggerated. Please keep in mind any leak that is put out there is always with a motive. We get along just fine, and yesterday was a great example of that. So no issue on that front. We also covered COVID and the stress impact. You know, there's no manual to that. Yes, everybody had to go through it, but how does each coach handle it, player, on and on and on? And there is no manual and no guidebook, and we talked a lot through that. And then we finished our session yesterday talking about the new landscape coming our way, preparing for immediate transfers, name, image, and likeness, and more. It will not look the same, and we must adapt. Things are only speeding up. College sports, as we all know it, is gone, and there is a new era, so we spent some time on that. So that was the last few weeks and months, how we evaluated some of the things we did and how we got to today. So I'll take another few minutes and spend some time on why we felt Justin should and will remain as our head coach. Certainly one thing I want to start with, because some of it's just about removing incorrect information. The decision on Justin's future here was never made about money. Yes, we are in a bind financially. Yes, there's buyouts. But we were determined to make the right decision either way, because I cannot imagine a working relationship that you have somebody around that you don't believe in, that you just keep for money. So that was absolutely not the case. If it was the right thing to keep Justin, we could do that. If it wasn't, we could have done that. So you can lose or risk money no matter which way you go. So make the right decision, and the rest will take care of itself. This is something I also wanted to share transparently. I will enjoy some of this. Here is the scouting report on our team that matters the most to me, and where I got it was not from my eyes. It wasn't from any coaches here. It wasn't from any message boards, that's for sure. I talked to a very small number of people, coaches, perhaps scouts, others that have played against us, watched our film, studied it, and really drilled down, because I wanted an outside perspective on what we bring, how people prepare against us, what our scouting report is. And in general, I'll give to you what we found, which also leads to the reason that Justin, we feel like, can certainly do it. I will enjoy this one the most. Our offense, from people that you would know, incredibly talented people, the offensive scheme is very well thought of. It is adaptable. It is hard to prepare for. We didn't always execute how we needed on third down. We have a quarterback you can win with. We've now regained some of the identity on offense that we want. What we have not done a good job of is dehumanizing Brad Cornelson. So you will see him tomorrow. Maybe we'll start our own talk show. Hokies are kind of trained to love defense, question offense, and even to the average fan like me and most of you watching, if a play doesn't work, it's pretty easy to blame that. So our offensive coaching and philosophy is very well respected and not very easy to prepare for. Our defense, we seem to have some very talented people over there, maybe rising stars, hopefully so. Coaches and people that know the business knew that we tried to put our own system in with no spring ball. It did not go quite as easy, understandably. Maybe we reverted back to some old stuff, got a little predictable, but I tell you what, by the end of the year, that first half against Clemson, some of the fight against Miami, and how we played against UVA was pretty darn impressive. But it was agreed that it was too difficult to fully evaluate a defensive staff. Our special teams, very well regarded, amazing attention to detail, literally may just have the best one in the country or very good. And so that's the scouting report that matters to me. On offense, I believe we are 38-7 when scoring 30 points or more. And yes, some days our defense played good enough to win and our offense didn't, and vice versa. But we don't win or lose as individual units. We do it together. So that is the scouting report. We also talked about recruiting, strategy, focus. This is with the people that are my advisors and people I trust. Our team identity, what must improve, evaluate, and develop. Okay, so that's that. Furthermore, this is now away from those opinions, and these are mine. For Justin, in some year, this was year one in some respects, and please let me explain that. We are not going to look at it like year one. We know it's year 5. What I mean is this, that this is year one of being totally Justin's program, all of his players. I believe that the transition from Coach Beamer and Bud Foster was harder than anticipated, not because of Bud or Coach Beamer. Awesome. Justin and I couldn't be more complimentary, but those are two legends to follow. There is always a saying for a reason that it's hard to be the guy that follows the guy, and I now feel like Justin is getting his feet under him and getting his own group. So in some way, it's year one. And again, I want to reiterate, Coach Beamer and Coach Foster could not have been better. It is absolutely nothing against them. I think those of you understand what I mean by that, but please don't get me in a bind with that. Justin handled that transition great, as well as anybody could. We did not gut the house down to the foundation at that time. We kept a few wings and renovated it while we're living in it. Now that renovation on that house analogy is complete, and we're very pleased with it. 4-1 versus UVA and 4-1 versus UNC during Justin's time. The infrastructure and university support is there. That's something that many of you often don't see. The seeds that have been planted in the past years will pay off soon. We have a vision and a plan that will work, and it is very bold. Recent examples of some of the seeds planted, we just finished our Student Athlete Performance Center, our nutrition center. That is a game changer for us. All of Merriman and Jamerson has been renovated. The weight room, the team position meeting rooms, the players lounge will be next, and a $110 million residence hall will finish this coming fall with individual rooms for all of our student athlete freshmen with the rooms slightly bigger and patterned after Auburn and Alabama football. We've recently added 9 recruiting-based positions. I believe we had 1 or 2 7 years ago. We have donors that want to help in that regard and have stepped up, and we will continue to add some more strategically, the right ones to get us in the right places. We're close to having a final plan with the university and donors to take our budget from the middle or the bottom third of the ACC to the top third in the ACC. The future is very bright. We finished 5-5 in the ACC, as you know. That may finish 7th. I don't know about the last few games. That's certainly not good enough. However, our budget is 9th in the ACC. Our football coach and staff pay is 8th. Our football budget is 6th. The seeds have been planted to improve these resources. We don't mind overachieving, but the harvest is coming soon. There is something special forthcoming, and before long, Virginia Tech will move successfully from a challenger brand to a champion brand. Justin has values. He's a good man. He's very private, very family-oriented, often misunderstood. What we've talked about is he is additionally the face of Virginia Tech in many ways, of the enterprise, the energy and passion. I know a lot of that has been tough on him this year, and it was fun to see his spirit with the team post-GVA again, and that excited me. COVID has denied Coach and I both contact and outreach. That will change when we can get back out there. He's competitive, he's focused, NSA compliant, the grades are good, student development. He's still young, and I like what I see on the learning front. Tomorrow, I hope you can hear directly from him on how he feels about Virginia Tech and his words. I may have made a mistake on that the last time speaking for him, and I think it's more important than ever that the VT family hear directly from him. I also take ownership in the fact that we have missed on a few things. I can be a better coach, mentor, coaching the coaches, lifelong learning, right? Every coach is different. Some need more than others there, but I can do better for Justin. I can't help him call plays, but I can help him in a lot of other ways, and I have not done as good a job in that as I aspire to do. I want to thank our players for competing to the end. Again, all of these are reasons that we decided and believe Justin is the best for us. Our players responded. You learn a lot about coaching staffs when they lose. Every issue comes to light. Winning covers up everything. We improved, we played, and we competed for each other in Virginia Tech, and that shows a lot. I also want to express empathy for what all of our coaches and players went through in the league and across the country. I will give you some data that maybe you don't have. I'll speak in rough numbers. Well over half of our team, maybe 3/4, contacted COVID since March. 8 of our 10 full-time coaches contacted it, including our defensive coordinator missing the first 2 games. Our league played the most games in college football this year by far. Virginia Tech completed 11, which not many in the country will do that, and there is no road map or manual on how to do that. When I interviewed Justin and every coach we have, I never once asked them how they were going to manage through a worldwide pandemic. So most people also do not understand what happens when you reboot a program and tear it all the way to the ground. Some fans just simply want someone to pay for their pain. I know it hurts when we lose, but there may be a better way to go about expressing it. That's the easy way out. Hey, the mob is mad, let's change coaches, have a honeymoon, and nobody really knows much for 3 years. Not here, not this year. I don't believe that's right. That's not how we're going to do it, just because it's easier and pacifies some of the vocal opinions in the social media mob. If we change coaches now, hypothetically, we throw out a young, talented defensive coordinator and former players. We have 8 on staff. We've made progress in the 7-5-7. We have not given this staff a fair shake, in my opinion, and that we are not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you change coaches now, you miss signing day tomorrow, and every class you miss is another year behind. If you change coaches now, every player on our team right now is Coach Fuente's recruit. They can almost all, leave immediately and transfer beginning August 1st. We could literally have half a team or less if we reboot it and rip it all to the ground. We're also in the middle of a dead period where coaches have not been able to recruit and go out for over a year, and that is continuing. We are figuring that out, and the virtual recruiting is up and running. A reboot of that now will only dig us a deeper hole. There are so many NCAA changes coming down the pike that would be another problematic thing to switch midstream. Upheaval is a dangerous strategy if you miss, and I don't think that I know we have the right coach. What I am saying is if you go out there and you miss, look around the ACC. I'm not going to name schools of people that have rotated through coaches. The SEC, even Alabama missed on 3 straight a couple decades ago. If you change and miss, it can get into a spiral that you don't want. So we believe we have the right guy, and that is what we're going to move forward with. Almost finished. Thanks for your patience. Will this decision be right? I have no earthly idea. I think it will. I believe it will. It got my absolute best ability out of 25 years and 6 schools, and every ounce of energy I have to put the best decision forward. Time will always tell. I work to remove emotion, do right, sleep well, and that my self-worth is not determined by others' opinions, especially those that I don't know and who don't know me. It just makes me more determined. Football is important here. We must and will do better. Failure is simply not an option. That is crystal clear to me, to Justin, and to everyone here. That is the standard, and that's what we signed up for. We have a plan, we have hope for the future, and we did what we thought was best. We felt like this is the most likely successful path. I feel good about it. I'm paid to do what is best, not always easiest, or to pacify some others. I know I mentioned that earlier. I understand the responsibility and love Virginia Tech. This is my school now. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere since 1988. I want to finish here, do the best I can if I'm allowed to stay. And all I can promise everybody out there is we're going to work every day to make you proud and put everything behind it and ask for your faith. Very quickly. Finally, last, what we would ask from Hokie Nation, if you can do it, before we play again in 9 to 10 months, if you're up for this. Don't tear it down. Some will try to continue to tear it down and never stop, just to justify their previous position of thinking we needed to make a change. As Buzz Williams used to say, are you a fountain or are you a drain? Are you putting out things that can be consumed and helpful to others, or are you just a drain? If you can be involved, please do. It hurts us when you pull your support. You're really hurting all 22 sports, scholarships, all of that. If you're able to participate, we now need you more than ever. We have 20,000 donors strong and working our way up. Most that threaten to pull their money publicly usually don't give too much, but we do know some of you do not feel you can invest in us, and it is a gift. We will receive it when you're ready to give it. Social media is not the real world for some of you. Breaking news on that. Don't let it consume you. I also want to prepare our fan base for the new transfer world. In the past, most transfers left for lack of playing time, and that still happens. However, in the new normal and immediate transfer eligibility, it is going to happen a lot. The old days of college athletics, I liken it to, David Teal maybe can remember this. In Major League Baseball, before free agency, people would talk about how the teams never changed, how you'd see them in the neighborhood restaurants, how you knew them. I am preparing our fans and everyone that day is over now in college athletics. We need to recruit very special and specific young people to stay dedicated here and be here. It makes me incredibly sad when any don't want to be here, but if they ultimately don't want to work or be at Virginia Tech, we won't get in their way. That is changing. You will see that here. You will see that across the country. In some ways, I think Virginia Tech was just unfortunately first with some of the transfer portal things and some of the people opting out for pros, but you've certainly seen that. I don't love it, but it is not always an indication of our program, just like it isn't for all the others across the country. Lastly, to our former players out there, we have 8 to 10 of you on staff. Perhaps there will be more opportunity in the future if we are allowed to do virtual recruiting. We will involve who we can. We recognize that everything was built on your shoulders, and I have tremendous respect for that, for you guys that played and coached here. I know how much it means to you, and I know how much you want us to be successful. Call or email me and come around post-COVID. This is home, and I'd love to see you. We ask our people here also, and we'll ask Hokie Nation to be neutral to positive. If you can't say something nice, try and be neutral. I guess the best thing they could say at neutral is time will tell and we'll see. Last thing, 2020, so much anger out there. We've been yelling at each other for a long time. The season's over. We're not going to change any of those outcomes. We don't play for 9 or 10 months, and I'm just asking for some of the anger to ease up a little bit. Let's heal, because the only way out of this thing at Virginia Tech is together. And we have men's basketball tonight at 6:30. Thanks a lot. All right. I know that's a long introductory one. I don't get a chance to talk much. I love the Virginia Tech community, and maybe I over-explained, but I wanted them to know the why behind it, and you media folks as well. So now I will answer any questions that you may have, and thanks for covering us.
David Teal, would you like to start?
But a couple things just based on what you said. You mentioned a couple times in 9 months when we play again. Are you and Virginia Tech not going to accept any potential postseason invitation?
Fair question. That did not imply that. We have some opinions on it. Justin is going through the meetings with the players. Certainly want to let them have some say-so in it. You also want to make sure, if you have some guys turning pro, who's going to play in it. We have talked some about the streak. I don't know that we believe in a streak with an asterisk, but we'll see. So that's a long way to say, David, I think in the next 24 hours, we need to get an answer to the ACC at 5 and 6. I don't have that yet. I was more referring to next regular season. My apologies.
Oh, no worries. And then you said meaning you, I need to do a better job of helping Justin. How do you go about doing it? How do you envision doing it?
Sure. And some of it I'll leave private because of the conversation with him, but I meant it more than the obvious of what resources, what do we need to do. Being the head football coach is a pretty big undertaking. Some coaches want to be coached, some want to be left alone, some you got to love on, some you got to kick in the tail. They're all different. And Justin is pretty inward, and we had a good breakthrough yesterday. I believe I can help educate him on Virginia Tech, on media, on donors, on just being a listening ear. We both talked pretty intimately about how lonely a job they can be, and he can help me as well. So football coaches are tough and all that. It's not always easy to ask for help, but I also take ownership in some of our falling short on the scoreboard because of my executive coaching.
Andy Bitter.
Yeah, Whit, I'm curious if in your discussions with Justin, if he expressed any things that he needs to change about what he needs to do with this team in terms of coaching. I know you're not a guy that likes to meddle in that, but did he say anything to you that he looked inward that he wanted to change?
Yeah, we talked about that. That would be better coming from him. I don't want to mislead anybody into thinking there will or won't be. If there's sound logic for what you have, then we'll go with that. But we talked through it. We talked about support personnel, our recruiting efforts, things such as that. So that would be better coming from Justin. But there were no demands made that if you want to stay here, you have to do X. Because hopefully I'm a coach's AD, and you give them advice, you do that. But they sink or swim with their own people. So I think the staff that he's brought together, a lot of new ones, right? Haven't even been here a year. Pretty pleased and ready to give them a chance to show what they can do.
And I think I've seen you speak about the football infrastructure fund you've been trying to raise money for. What can you tell us about that, and how much would it be? Is there any kind of match from somewhere, and what would that go for?
Sure, Andy. I'll do the best I can. I think I have talked about some of those numbers, which maybe I shouldn't have. But we have lots of ways people can help, right? A $25 donor, $100 donor on up. But some people are blessed with the resources to do more than that. And we put together a plan that we've been working and presenting to those folks. I really need to thank our fundraisers in Advancement and in the Hokie Club as well. And we, with Justin, he and I, laid out a plan for the direction, the infrastructure, the recruiting, what we were going to do, this, that, and the other. And we had some people step up, around 15 to 20 people to the tune of around $12.5 million over the next 5 years. And we also believe we can get some help from the university. And when I say that, that is not on the backs of student fees and tuition, but the university is committed to help. We're going to be in a good spot. We're going to be okay. I really love working here, and it's going to be okay.
Is that for positions on the staff, and what would that money be used for?
Yes, but it's not just people upon people. You can have overkill in that regard. It can be recruiting budget. It can be recruiting staff. It can be some of your analysts, some of your video work. It is not about being the highest budgeted school in the country. I'd love it. But as I've said many times before, then Texas and Ohio State would never lose a game. But we have a comprehensive plan through athletics, through fundraising, through the university we are very close on that will take us from the middle or lower third overall budget of the ACC to the top third.
Thank you.
Mike Nisolek.
Yeah, a couple things. Were there any changes made to Justin's contract at all?
No.
And then with him coming back, you mentioned kind of fan engagement, and I think you sense that fans seem kind of increasingly frustrated kind of with the closed-off nature of the program. How do you change that? And do you feel that, I mean, obviously the pandemic has to come to an end, but once it does, what would you like to see from the football coach to embrace that more?
Sure. And, you know, I believe, again, coaches have to be true to themselves, and I believe Justin is pretty private. That's fine. When you get him in settings, he does a great job. This year, we were not able to take him out any, no donor visits, no things such as that, no caravan events, no former player reunions. So really for the past year, we have done some things through Zoom, but really with all that's going on, he has just turned inward, and I get it. Focus on football, focus on this team, ignore the haters. Let's do this, let's do this. And all I'm working on is, hey man, if people can understand you and feel a part of it and understand your passion and how you feel about being here, then this is going to be a little bit easier. So I'm a fifth generation Virginian. Virginia Tech's the longest place I've been. I feel like I can help him, right? If I moved to Oklahoma, he could help me.
Well, but do you think there's too many walls up shielding the program from, the fans?
No. I know y'all media don't like it. Here's the other thing about Justin. I shouldn't give away his secrets. When he is talking to the media, he's usually not talking to you guys or our fans. He's talking to the opposing team.
And then, I know you couldn't have predicted a pandemic, but would you be reluctant to hand out an 8-figure buyout again? When you see some of these numbers that are being paid out, Gus Malzahn, $21 million, South Carolina, 13, I think it was. Is that unhealthy for college football? And do you regret that number that you guys have hanging over you? I mean, regardless of if you have to make a change or not, just the sheer kind of concept of it, do you regret that?
Fair question. You threw a few at me, and no, if Justin was not the right coach, we would have found a way to do that. So football is too important, and when you're talking $10 million, that is a lot of money. $2.5 million over 4 years, it's a lot of money, but if it was wrong, we were not going to keep a marriage together, or that bad analogy, a working relationship together just because we couldn't afford to do it. Actually, if you do your research and homework on it and learn about contracts, guaranteed money, fully guaranteed, all of that, I'm not bothered by Justin's contract at all. I believe he's due to make $18 million or so on the way out, and it's $10 million if we had made a change. So I'd say he's left some exposure out there as well. So the contract's solid. Justin, to my knowledge, every job that ever came his way, he simply turned down. Ones with more money, more resources. Short conversation with Baylor that I may have messaged wrong and he may have messaged wrong. But other than that, I've seen a loyalty that others haven't seen, and I'm hoping, I don't think Justin's going to start his own talk show anytime soon, but if we let you see a little behind the scenes, maybe even meet this mysterious Brad Cornelson, then people might understand what they're about and their Hokies and understand them a little bit more.
Thanks.
Mike Barber.
Yeah, before I hit you with my question, you just said he speaks to the opposing team in his press conferences. Speaking of Coach Fuente, could you elaborate what you mean by that?
No.
Well, that was a throwaway.
I elaborate on everything, don't I, Mike? we talked about messaging and, and just some of the things he says and does. And I'll just leave it at that, Mike. Shoot, coaches, if we can get an advantage, we will do that. But he understands there's different audiences, but he's smarter, and there's a method to his madness sometimes. But I know how it can come across, and especially when you're losing. And yeah, he's a good guy. He's a Hokie.
You've alluded a few times to Coach Cornelson, and it seems like a Virginia Tech tradition to criticize the offensive coordinator. I also recall when you were hired, though, you mentioned being the son of a former coach, and that you weren't somebody who was going to meddle with coaching staffs. So I'm curious, what kind of discussion did you have with Justin in terms of his autonomy of his staff?
We went through each of them one by one, and I believe he has confidence in them, and he's going to continue those evaluations, and I don't want to speak for him. But no, Mike, I don't go in. I guess I would if I had to, but I can't think of a time that I've gone in, unless it's been for bad behavior or something, where I've said to a coach, you've actually absolutely got to get rid of this person to save your job. As the son of a coach and others and coaches, this is a place coaches want to work, and it's because we say as long as they don't have a bad background and they handle themselves, then you're going to hire the staff. I hire the head coaches, you hire the assistants. I can be a listening ear and give advice, but no, that did not occur yesterday, no.
In big picture, how valuable a data point is this year's one-loss record when you consider everything else that Justin had to deal with, and every coach in America with the pandemic? Was the one-loss record this year a valuable data point for you?
It's always valuable. The point I was trying to make about COVID, sometimes when I've heard Justin speak about it, that it's difficult. And then the natural answer is it is for everybody. All I'm saying is I don't know if we handled COVID great. I know our sports medicine did, and we got games in. But I don't know if I handled it great. He did. I don't know how everybody did it. So I just feel like during a unique year like this, it wasn't a chance to give a true evaluation, especially on the defense.
Norm?
Hey, Whit, you mentioned that 5-5 is not good enough in the ACC, and you just told Mike that wins and losses are always valuable in terms of being a data point in evaluation. Was there any specific discussion with Justin about what's expected next season in terms of wins and losses, or a goal for the team in terms of what should be achieved?
Yeah. We covered, I covered with him some expectations, and some I had, some he had, things we agreed on to improve. But no, I'm not in the business. And again, some people do it their own way. I'm not. I won't ever go hang a certain, ever's a long time. I have never so far, and have not with Justin, put a certain number, game number on there. As y'all know, some games are bigger than others to win, and they have enough pressure. Everybody knows we need to perform. So I think that's a bad strategy. Or what if you give a number and the recruiting or the ethics or other things aren't good? So it has to be more than that. But wins and losses are extremely important at this level. We know that.
Obviously, the $10 million is a big number for anybody, especially during this pandemic. But there was some talk of there might have been a donor or a group of donors that was willing to put the money down or present it to you to replace him. Was that the case? Was there ever a group of donors or a donor that came forward with that figure?
No. And what I try to do on fundraising, I didn't make a single call or connection with anybody to say, hey, if we make a change, will you pay for this? I feel like we should be able to pay our own payroll and contracts. And I guess if we had made the decision to make a change, I may have contacted some about that. But no, that is false. I think some people get mixed up with our donor group on recruiting positions, infrastructure, finishing out some facilities, digital things, all of that. And I believe that is misinformation. I know it's misinformation.
And I know there's been talk of adding more personnel for recruiting, like you said, in the future. in these discussions with Justin over the course of the season, or even yesterday, did he request anything to make this easier? Has he come forward and said, I need this and I have to have this in order to get this job done?
Not too much, no, because what y'all wouldn't know, some of our donors do, is that we're running the plan that we had in place before the season started. Not that you can't adjust it, but that's when we said this is what it's going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, and went about it that way.
Thanks.
Aaron McFarland.
Hey, Whit, I'll try to be an optimist here. Let's say best case scenario, I mean, you guys win 10 games next year and challenge for the ACC title. Everything's looking much better than it does right now. You touched on his loyalty. I mean, I think there's some concern out there that if he did have a good season, he's not necessarily committed to Virginia Tech. And I know that's just people speculating. You said you've seen maybe loyalty that other people haven't. What have you seen? And what assurances have you given your faith that you're placing in him now, he's going to return that with long-term?
That's a lot there, Aaron. I think you were an optimist on the 10 games, but a pessimist on the coach leaving. So I'll go with both of that. You never know in this line of work. Ultimately, you don't want anybody with you that doesn't ultimately want to be here. I believe Justin does, and I've seen lots of examples of calls that were made that he didn't even entertain. And again, one short visit with one school last year that he may have handled wrong, I may have handled wrong, has kind of messed that up. But tomorrow, I'm looking forward to y'all asking him that. But I don't know that there's ever a guarantee that everybody will stay. But what I heard yesterday was very confirming to me about wanting to be at Virginia Tech, about believing that this is the place he can do it, that he had the fire and the desire to still do it, and that this is a place we expect to win the division, compete for ACC championships, and get in the Final Four. So go ahead.
How do you evaluate how recruiting is going? Is it rankings or something else?
Yeah, great question. I would love to see those recruiting rankings higher just because it sounds better and I don't have to answer the questions to it. I believe now with the people we have in place, let's see where that goes. We also did do a very good analysis yesterday on the Too Deep board about where everybody was from. Talked a lot about Virginia, right? Got to get inroads there, and you pick up the 5 stars like Settle and Fuller and Tyrod. But, you know, the Virginia kids that, whether it's Cam Chancellor or the Edmonds brothers, all that, right? And it's, when we talked about recruiting, what I shared with Justin is I don't necessarily care where they come from. We're all Hokies. But what is the plan in Virginia? Can we find some of those guys? He had a plan for that. There's some good classes coming up. And then not that we always have to overachieve, but the best players here at Virginia Tech and the ones that will play here, stay here, maybe fit those mold of some of those other guys, Stroman. So we talked a lot about that and strategies and other places. So recruiting numbers are very important. But at the same time, I think a lot of the people hitting us on recruiting numbers were the same ones that told us we were pretty stupid for taking Christian Darrisaw over Delaware State.
Hank?
Hey, Whit, thanks so much for all your time today. Your assessment of this obviously took a long period of time. You know, with all the tentacles you put out, with talking to other people and all that stuff, and, you know, culminating with your 4-hour meeting yesterday, which I imagine is an unusual way to end any season. It's also unusual to have a press conference to announce your coach's stay. 20-some minute introductory comments about
Well, I'm sorry. I'm getting better at that, Hank. I'll work on it, you know.
We appreciate it. What inspired that?
That,
Your
yeah.
assessment of the way things were going, or
Yes.
getting from other people?
Yeah, you know what? It was all me. Maybe it's wrong. Could have just put out a press release. I, as you guys know, have the tendency to want to explain. It's kind of like if I can explain, you may not agree with it, but you'll understand it. And I like to please and make Hokie Nation happy. That doesn't mean I'm always going to do what the masses think, but I just thought it might be good for people to hear what I believe and support for him, maybe explain a few things, and then let Justin go into signing day. I just thought letting him go cold into signing day, have to talk about that class, answer a lot of questions that were my decisions. I don't know, maybe this will burn me and I won't do it this way again, but I just like to be genuine and transparent. And like I said at the beginning, either say nothing or try to tell everybody as much as possible. But just a hunch, and I hope it works.
Appreciate that. I think a lot of people unfairly or unfairly look at COVID numbers and use it as an assessment of the leadership at the top. You know, Boston College had no cases. You guys had a rampant situation. You said up to 3/4 of the team. Is there an element of that in your mind?
No, because I'm aware of where a lot of the other teams in the league are, and we're also talking about since March. A lot of ours got it before they came back, et cetera. How Boston College did that, I have no earthly idea. I know some of the other schools that were incredibly tight and had nothing early on, and then it broke on them here later in the season. So, no, I didn't get the sense it was lack of discipline. It is an incredibly contagious disease or virus, and almost everybody in our league went through it, and then you're seeing it happen across the country everywhere else. So, no, I feel comfortable with it.
And finally, from me, did you walk into his office yesterday knowing the outcome, or was it dependent on that, on the time spent together?
Oh, I wanted to hear some things, but I was pretty well set on it. You know, I'd hate for it to have to come down to one meeting, but there was some things I certainly wanted to. But I believe in Justin. I'm not unaware of what we need to do, and you know, it's not always the fashionable thing to keep somebody when everybody's yelling, but he's our guy. He's a Hokie, and I believe it gives us the best chance to be successful, and I'll take that responsibility.
Thank you.
Gene?
Hey, Whit, thanks for your time today. You mentioned talking to some former Hokies players, Michael Vick and Bruce Smith. How much input did you receive from current players, and how much weight did that have in leading to your decision?
Good point. That's a great question. Not so much, but there's a reason for that. I did have a captain or two on their own stop me in the hallway one day, but you don't want to go around asking too many questions during the season because it spreads. It looks like it's just a hard thing to evaluate and break. So you get it in exit interviews, especially with your seniors on the way out the door. You do that. But really the biggest indicator to me, Gene, is do they fold up shop and give in, or do they keep getting better later in the year? And the best coaches can handle a losing year and come out of it okay. You know, you've seen some coaches, maybe even in basketball, come out, 2-16. You're losing, but you see them getting better. You see the progress. So watching that, being around them, but it is very hard to get in there and start asking a whole bunch of questions. You just watch and learn, get information from other people around, but you also don't want to make your coach paranoid and seem like you don't trust them. So that's a little harder than most people would think. I just watched how hard they played and their reaction and celebrating with their coach after the game on Saturday too.
Thank you.
Mark Berman?
Afternoon, Whit. A couple things on the non-football big decisions you had to make recently. On the layoff front, how many people were laid off, and what areas of the department were affected, and how much of a cost savings did that wind up being for you?
Sure. I can't comment. The university doesn't on HR issues, Mark. Very fair question. I can't give you a number. There were savings, but again, it was all part of an overarching campaign from pay cuts to budget reductions and an effort to try to pull back $15 million. So anytime you have to eliminate positions or pay cuts, it's not a lot of fun, but we felt like if we're going to ask everybody else to sacrifice, we better put our own skin in the game.
And to follow up on that, I want to give you a chance to explain. You've said several times in this press conference that the big buyout wasn't an issue, that if you decided you needed to change football coaches, you would have found the money. How do you kind of balance that with, obviously, the money was, you didn't find the money to save people's jobs or to save, to avoid pay cuts?
Good point, and I don't have the answer for you. I was merely trying to say, with football generating 90 to 95% of the revenue, which funds the opportunities for all of the other sports, that even though we don't have the money to keep somebody here just because we couldn't do that would not be a very healthy relationship. But I realize the paradox and the exact question you're asking, and I don't have an answer for it.
Andrea Adelson.
Whit, you mentioned you're not going to put a number on the wins for next season, but I'm pretty sure when the list of coaches on the hot seat for 2021 come out, Justin's name probably is going to be on there, despite what you have said here today. So what do you need to see out of the team next year? Or is there anything that can be done to answer questions which will probably continue to linger well into the off season and the new season?
I understand the hot seat talk, and the best way to get off that is win some games and do it right. So that's what we're planning on doing. I would just say this, Andrea, noticeable improvement. And again, I didn't go in there and say, if you don't do this, that, or the other, we'll know it when we need to know it. There's enough high pressure there. But yeah, those conversations are going to be had. I can't control that. I hope some people say, genuine vote of confidence from the AD. But yeah, that's the market that they're in and we're in, and I don't doubt it will be there. But I know one way to get off that list pretty quickly is to win games.
As a follow-up to a lot of questions that have been asked about outreach and Justin's personality, how much do you feel the way the boosters and donors view him is as a comparison to Coach Beamer and his outreach and his personality? Justin's obviously a very different person than Frank is. And so I wonder whether the way Justin has maybe been a little bit more closed off has negatively impacted the way the donors or boosters view.
I don't know. And I like Justin. I'm just saying, when people are under stress, I do the same thing. You tend to turn inward. And again, we didn't have a chance to take him out, get him with some people. The donors that have met him and know him understand he's incredibly nice, incredible family guy. He's just a little more introverted, and then when things don't go well on the field, everybody piles on a little bit there. But and I don't know that it's fair to compare him to Coach Beamer. I didn't work with Coach Beamer his first 5 years here, but I heard he was a little more fiery and prickly, and then you get into it, you mellow, and then he became kind of Bobby Bowden. So it's also another point that it is always tough to follow the guy. And, the legend that you're always compared. But no, I don't think it is impacted too much. If people understood him, and they'll get to know him tomorrow. Again, I don't think he'll start his own morning talk show. But guys, he's okay. Buzz wasn't the most open either. So ideally you get them there and they can show some personality, and Hokies feel they can relate with them. And I believe Justin will express that tomorrow.
Lane?
Thanks for doing this today, Whit. That was kind of part of my question, but going off of that, do you feel that either you or Justin maybe underestimated when he was originally hired, his personality's ability to be the face of the program, and in some cases, as you said, also the face of the university? And is that maybe one of the ways that you might be able to help him as he moves forward, and understanding that you have to take the good with the bad when you are the most high, one of the highest profile coaches and people in the entire state?
Sure. No, I don't regret anything about hiring Justin. I think he serves as a very good face of our program. I'm saying through this year, some things that are already maybe not his favorite part as outgoing, and then you have COVID, and then you have pressure, and it clamps down. All I'm saying is getting through that season now should open things up a little bit. But no, if I've given the impression that I don't think he's the right face of the program, then I said that absolutely wrong, and I apologize. That's not what I meant.
David Hale.
Hey, Whit, thanks for doing this, by the way. I know you touched on it a little bit, but when you talk about players within the program, I think there's been certainly a perception of a number of guys who have transferred. The story that came out, I guess, a year or so ago about players maybe wanting to purposefully lose to not get into a bowl game. That kind of stuff from the outside certainly seems incredibly concerning. How aware were you of maybe any frustrations within the locker room, within the players, and how has that been addressed?
I get the sense that this year was the best one that we've had in a while, and you're going to have some things like that. I've never heard of a player talking about doing that, losing a game. I heard that. I remember that. That's old news. I've been thrilled with the attitude of this year's team and the senior leadership there. And then as far as, again, the transfers, and you're going to see more of them. It's not just going to be here. Like, as I mentioned earlier, we were one of the first ones that had some people enter the transfer portal, and Hokies aren't used to that. I don't like it either. And then we were kind of the first one that had a guy opt out for the NFL and COVID and all that, and then you started seeing it happening. So I guess what I'm trying to say is anytime somebody leaves your program, we look at it, we don't like it. All I'm saying is in the context of college football, this is changing rapidly, and it is going to be a whole lot of movement. So you need to recruit very well, but you also hopefully can recruit guys that want to stay and compete and for that school, and, not hired, assassins. That's not the right, hired guns. So it is a new era of recruiting.
And I'll lob a quick softball at you too, if that helps any. Do you know the new ACC commissioner very well, and what were your thoughts on that hire? What kind of challenge do you think you're walking into?
That's my favorite question of the day. Thank you for that.
I'm glad I could help.
Thank you for taking it easy on me. I know Jim Phillips. I really, really, really like him. We met when I was at Auburn in the late 90s, and he was at Tennessee, and then he went to Notre Dame, and we've kept in touch. He's one of my favorite ADs in the country. I would put him at the top. There's not too many people you could put there. Great values. I think he's super talented, and what I also like is that he has great respect for John Swofford and that transition, and I think the ACC made an outstanding hire. I couldn't think of anybody better. I really like Jim Phillips, and he's been very good to me, very talented.
Adam Winkler.
Hey, Whit. You've obviously been pretty plugged into noise, per se, so I'm sure you're aware of some of the former players, some very high-profile ones, coming out and publicly saying that they didn't think Justin was the right fit and they thought it was time for him to go. Mm-hmm. How damaging is that to the program, and maybe do you plan on having a conversation with them about their message?
Yeah, certainly I don't think it's a positive. It's hard to defend or respond back because those guys were amazing players. What they did here, I know how much pride they have. They care deeply. They're entitled to their opinion. I don't think it serves me very well to say, hey, I disagree with this or that. So I talked to a few. I didn't want to get with too many, but enough that I felt like I had a representation, and, you listen to it all and make the right decision, and hopefully those guys don't have any hard feelings. I hope they don't. They're always welcome back as long as I'm here.
Andrew McClung.
Hey, Coach, I just wanted to ask, or not Coach, Whit, having a son play at the collegiate level this year, what has it been like from the parent perspective, just to see kind of the background of what these kids have gone through this year?
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully the Colonial Athletic Association will play 8 games in the spring and do that. I've said this before. It's made me a better athletic director looking at those young people. I always did, but not to the depth of the love somebody has for them and that you're entrusted to that care. What I've also learned is, we're talking about football today, you better darn sure love that game more than about anything to be able to play it at a high level. When you're talking about the workouts, all the strain and stress, 50 PCR tests up your nose at 5:30 in the morning, all the sacrifices, all that, it makes you appreciate what they go through. It also makes me feel for them. I get paid to deal with it. I'm an adult. People can send things to me. I block out most of it, but I feel for those young kids when some people take it out on them. That's not very fair. That's somebody's child. They're volunteers. So it's made me a better AD. It's probably made me a little more empathetic and hopefully understanding of that, and much more open my eyes to the psychology and of injured players getting back to the team or separated from the group.
And the follow-up question I have to that too is, what's going to happen with the opponents that were on the schedule this year, like Penn State and Middle Tennessee? Are they going to be rescheduled in the future, anything like that? Have you had any discussions?
Yeah, I got to make sure everything's signed and all of that, but I do not believe we will return the game to Penn State since they didn't come here. We'll look at some things. We do have a game scheduled, neutral site in place of that y'all will really like. I believe we moved out Middle Tennessee, and I can't remember. I'm sorry, that was a few months ago, but I know the Penn State one was big. Next year, it won't take us long to figure out what we've got. We've got, among others, West Virginia and Notre Dame non-conference, and we like to play on a national stage and do well.
A couple more, Jermaine.
Whit, first of all, I just want to thank you for your time this afternoon. I got to ask you, from your personal perspective, how have you dealt with this COVID situation as an athletic director? I mean, we hear from the players, we hear from the coaches, but from an athletic director perspective, I'm sure you've had to go through so much with it also.
Well, thanks, Jermaine. We all have. The hardest mental health era that I've ever been a part of personally and others, and the impact it has on our student athletes. I've also learned that from children in sports, my own. I'm not sure I can articulate it. One of these days when we can look back on it, but we haven't been as busy, but the mental stress, you're not as busy with evening events, things such as that, but the mental stress and not being able to get away from it is taking a toll. And anyways, doing the best I can, just like y'all, and have many blessings. But it's been a challenge.
Ricky?
Thanks, Pete. Whit, you mentioned that Justin didn't mention a specific, or that you didn't set a specific win number for Justin heading into next season. But when you're discussing with Justin kind of the timeline for the program, did he give you maybe a year or a set of years in which that you and the administration and the fan base can expect the team to kind of hit the standard that you guys have set?
Not specifically, no, but that shouldn't be alarming. He knows we need to be better. I know we need to be better. I just think in a year like this, where we went 5-5 and finished 7th, which is not good, but not terrible, and we have a staff that's put together, that we turned the corner, renovated, got through all the transition, and now it's time to bounce back up. So I'm planning on it being sooner than later, and I hope he and I both are here a long time.
Riley?
Whit, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you. I just wanted to ask, you said going into this meeting with Fuente, you knew you were keeping him, but there were certain things that you needed to hear, and what were those things?
Oh, yeah, I'll keep that private, but mainly just the desire to do it here, the passion for that, the fire in the belly, so to speak. But no, it wasn't like, here's a trick question. It just, I want to hear from him now that the season's over and talk through this thing because I'm committed. If he's committed, we can do this. So it was primarily things like that, and I just wanted to be reassured.
Gotcha. And a follow-up to that, do you have, I know we're going to talk with Cornelson and Fuente tomorrow. Is your impression, are any changes being made to the staff at any other assistant levels?
I'll leave that question for Justin. I understand why you have to ask it. He and I'll talk about that if that's a recommendation, but we did not cover all of that yesterday, so I can't speculate on that. All right.
All right. Thank you, Whit, for your time today. Again, we'll have Coach Fuente, Coach Hamilton, and Coach Cornelson tomorrow. And I appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. Thank you, Whit.
Yeah, and thank y'all for covering us. Again, I don't know that this is always right. Just want you to understand. So if it's not, send me a halfway decent text, and I'll do it different next time. Thought y'all deserved more than a press release. Thank you.